What's up, everybody? Welcome in, welcome back. We're ready to rock and roll today on days 5 and 6, I think it is, of the Hannah Gutierrez trial. And this is potentially the most interesting 2 day combination as the lawyering kind of went off the rails. And today, the judge has said not once but twice that everything's a sidebar after yesterday's outbursts. So those outbursts that have literally changed the way the judge is going to handle the courtroom the rest of this trial is what we're going to break down. It's what we're going to recap, what we're going to react to. We're going to talk about what the lawyers did right, what they did wrong, who was the more appropriate lawyer in what situation. And I want to hear from you guys to see if this affected the way you look at the case at all. So as you've joined in, and I know court's still going, it's probably wrapping up in the next minute or two, hit that like button, remind everybody to hit that like button and subscribe to our page so we can continue breaking this stuff down together. So yesterday was the case agent, the lead case agent on the case, going through the interviews, finishing her direct, and then getting cross-examined. They talked a little bit about Hannah Gutierrez's inconsistencies, how Seth Kenney was acting kind of weird toward Hannah Gutierrez, and she tried to blame Sarah Zachary at different points. And then when they got to the part where Hannah Gutierrez and her lawyer were kind of surprised when they started talking about the fact that this wasn't just the only piece of live ammunition on the set. She confirms that there was not a lot of time. And again, during Hannah Gutierrez's own interviews, she kind of blew holes in some of the defenses. Like there really wasn't a lot of time to mess with the gun from when she handed it off to David Halls and when she checked it. They go line by line to ask if this bullet was pulled out after lunch, if this bullet was pulled out after lunch to be checked. And Hannah Gutierrez basically doesn't know. She says she'd have to see the whole bullet, but she even said before when she checked him that she didn't pull out the whole bullet, just kind of halfway. And one of the really interesting points, which is going to be the first clip we watched together today, is when Hannah Gutierrez talks about or tries to say that that's not the box she remembers the ammo coming from. And we'll hear that exchange now.
You saw?
I don't remember that being in the box that you were pulling from. I don't recall that being the box that we were pulling from.
I don't remember that being the box. I don't recall that being the box.
Okay. Seems a little dingy, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. But here's my thing is that,
Yeah, there's suspected live rounds in the box.
which this matches what you showed me.
Yeah.
What you brought.
Yeah.
This is where we found a lot of live rounds. And this is what you showed me that you brought. Because again, this is the interview a couple weeks later after her lawyer prepared her. But because she already gave the interview the day of, some inconsistencies were going to be rather obvious. Then we're going to jump around or jump ahead a little bit to where she starts talking about all of the places they found live ammunition on set. And Hannah Gutierrez and her lawyer are both, even her lawyer says things like, wow, that is crazy. Everybody thinks it's so crazy that somehow the number one rule, no live ammo on set, was totally wrong and disregarded and screwed up in this case because there was all sorts of live ammo on set, not just this one defective round that ended up being the fatal shot.
Box she shook and was live.
Yeah, we've
So-
processed.
So where did those go?
When you're doing things in a state of after a traumatic situation,
Totally.
what you perceive could not be what is. Okay, so
She even agrees there because this comes up on cross that it was a traumatic situation. So, things could have been fogging your memory at the time, or they could be fogging your memory now, looking back on that trauma, but you're wrong about what you're saying. And there was other live ammo.
we had a spent casing from Alice Spent.
Okay.
We have the one that was in that box,
Yeah.
which we were told that that this was the box that you were pulling from.
Yeah.
Okay. We have the two on the top of the cart.
Yeah.
Just
So those might have been from the box.
Do you think she was doing them and then throwing them out on
No.
the cart? And just checking.
Maybe. I don't know. I wasn't there.
One in the bandolier on the top of the cart.
Right.
and one in Alex Bandelier, and then the one that's unsure that was in that blue shirt box.
And it's like their own line? Yeah. They're all that time. Wow, that's crazy.
Her lawyer's like, wow, that's crazy.
So my thing is, I mean, these boxes, obviously, I mean, you can just, even though these are dummy rounds,
Yeah,
you know, a majority of them, obviously, you
Yeah.
can see that they are different kinds of dummy rounds.
totally.
So,
All different kinds of dummy rounds and live, all mixed in. Not how it's supposed to be. Not if you buy a box from somewhere new.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why would there be mixed boxes of this stuff?
So usually, like, the only thing that I try to keep consistent is if there's no primer caps or if there's primer caps. And so most of the time, just try to keep the primer caps, the ones without primer caps together, so that way I know where they are.
Okay. And then, you know, this box, why would there be live ammo on the set?
I have no idea. At this point, it's kind of.
Why would there be live ammo on the set? I have no idea. Yeah, well, we have an idea, the cop is thinking. And the cop also asked her later, she's like, or she was asked, Hannah said she brought 2 boxes of dummy rounds on set. How many did you find when you searched the set? The cop's answer was 1. So where's that other box? And is that what they're pulling from when they loaded the gun with mismatching bullets and mismatching dummies and even the live round?
Like, somehow these were mixed in.
Okay. Did you ever do gun practice on this set?
Never, not once.
Never took the guns out for target practice, anything like that?
No, and I think there would be like videos, pictures of that or anything. Everyone would be pretty stoked if we were going shooting on set.
Okay.
Yeah. And so then they get into like whether or not she was involved when they were, because there were some accusations that they had live rounds because her and some of the people were messing around doing target practice on set.
Even on the weekends, there would at least be something.
You wouldn't suspect anyone to tell me that you were out there?
I don't know why people would say that, because 100% I was not, and I guarantee you people would probably have pictures and be stoked about it.
Is there any reason that you can think of that your DNA or prints would come back on me?
Maybe picking them up, maybe moving them around, maybe not.
She's like, I mean, maybe if I touched them, but like definitely not because I loaded them into the weapon, because this is not what I loaded into the weapon. And we know it does come back on it. The prints, I believe, came back on it, not the DNA. The prints didn't come back on the fired casing because it's too hot and they wouldn't have expected it to come back on it. But her prints are all over a lot of the things that other people's are not. When we talked about the fingerprint expert when they came and testified, and you can go back and watch that. We're going to jump up next to, again, this was a main point I was making in yesterday's video, that a big question you all have had that I'm sure the jury has as well is, how did live ammo get on the set? Was it Hannah Gutierrez? And the prosecutor asks this witness, what circumstantial evidence do you have that Hannah Gutierrez was the one that brought this live ammo on set? And this is right after she confirmed, Hannah Gutierrez has confirmed that Kenny and Zachary, there's no evidence that they brought any live ammo on set. The cop confirmed that.
No. Did you ever discover any evidence that Sarah Zachary was the source of the live rounds on set? No. Did you ever discover any evidence that Hannah Gutierrez was the person who brought the live rounds on set?
I guess it'd be circumstantial.
What circumstantial evidence are you referring to?
So in her interview, I mean, there's a lot of things. So, that box she identified in her interview when I asked her to show me what a box of hers would look like. She identified one on her phone. That picture on her phone matched exactly that box that we had. She was the one that handed that box to Lieutenant Benavides, stating that that was the box that she was pulling from, along with, the various bandoliers that we collected with that live ammunition. She identified as bringing from her previous set that she worked on. And the other box of dummies, it didn't match the box that she had brought. It was identified as one brought by Seth Kenny. The rounds inside that box did not, even just the dummies themselves didn't match in the way they looked. So all of this in totality is what we used in our investigation.
Did you ever discover any evidence as to who loaded the live round in the gun?
In Hannah's interview, she told me that she was the one that loaded Alex's gun.
All right. I'll pass the witness. Thank you.
It's a lot of circumstantial evidence and then direct evidence from Hannah that she was the one that loaded Alex's gun. So they're starting to work their way down, presenting this evidence that it's most likely she brought the ammo on set. They don't have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. It just may be a question that the jury has. What they have to prove is the overall negligence that she, and we'll talk about that later when we get to the armor, the expert, the firearm expert, on what she didn't do that she should have done. And we've already talked a lot about duty and how she breached that duty. Now, cross-examination is where a lot of the fireworks come. And it starts with the defense attorney trying to impeach her about, you said you delayed the search of the prop truck because of a lack of information or delayed information coming from Hannah Gutierrez, when in reality, when you applied for the warrant, you mentioned the first interview, which was the day of the incident. And eventually she's like, yeah, I guess. So that was fine. Then he tries to impeach her about how the gun was loaded or unloaded, and the fireworks begin. And this is where we're going to get into some poor lawyering on both sides, frankly. And I'm going to talk about what it's like to deal with lawyers like this.
Can you point out to me, and I'm all ears if you can, because I didn't hear it. Can you point out the timestamp where she said that about loading it over the prop card?
I
It's a horrible question. That's an absolutely horrible question. What you say is, we just watched that entire interview. Never did she say that she unloaded it over the prop cart, did she? And let her say, oh no, she did. And then you pull the timestamp you want to refresh your recollection with, just like I do here, guys. It's not that hard. He was sitting in court yesterday listening to all of it too. And there's a dial going across that you can see they're provided this ahead of time. He can say at 5:23, like I've done here, and I've paused it on this clip to play it for you so you can see what I'm talking about. That's the whole point of most of my videos, is I like to give you context from the horse's mouth, not just tell you what they said. I do recap a lot, of course, because we don't sit here for 8 hours. But he could have done that same exact method to cross-examine this witness to say, here are the 20 seconds from 5:43 to 5:43:20. But he didn't do that. And I don't love that lack of preparation. It's so much cleaner. It's so much smoother. This was so clunky and drew objections and issues and made both lawyers look bad.
don't have the timestamp.
Okay.
She would never have the timestamp, by the way. The witness would never have the timestamp because she has no clue what you're going to ask. Do you know who knows what you're going to ask? You. So you provide the timestamp. Now, if it doesn't exist, I understand. You can't provide a timestamp of something that doesn't exist, but you provide the timestamp of what was said that was the truth. And then you say, and is it true she never said what you said? And let her disagree with you. But asking her for the timestamp is just, I don't get it.
Ms. Gutierrez reads exact words in that first interview about unloading that gun.
Verbatim, no.
Okay. If I played your clip, would it refresh your memory?
Yes.
Okay. Does you want me to turn this down?
Well, I'm happy to look at what he's showing. I'm happy to look at what he's showing, but I also think probably the better and more complete way of handling this is to review the transcript. And I think we have numerous copies of that. So I'm not going to tell Mr. Bowles how to do his job. So show me what you're going to show.
It sounds like you're telling him how to do his job. So she says, she makes remarks like this multiple times, demeaning him, making him look like he doesn't know what he's doing, all in front of the jury. The judge should have shut it down right when she said that. The judge eventually shuts it down today, and we're going to hear that. But I'm not going to tell him how to do his job. It's like, but that's exactly what you're doing. And frankly, I disagree. I don't think the transcript's the way to do it. The video is in evidence. Frankly, if Mr. Bowles wanted to play the entire hour video and ask her questions throughout the video, he is entitled to do that. If the judge shuts him down and says it's a waste of time, she can, but I would be surprised. If he says, this is the way I want to defend this case and cross-examine this witness, I want to pick her statements apart to how she asked the questions to my client, and I want to play the whole video and pause it just like the prosecutor did. This is why I had a problem with, oh, maybe you guys can't hear it. We didn't sync up the transcript like we could have. So we're just going to have her repeat certain parts to it. It's like, what? You're going to allow the prosecutor to do that, but the defense, we're going to quibble about whether or not he can play a piece of the video. Now, the problem is he did not prepare and have the clips ready, which he should have. They're already in evidence. Once something is in evidence, the latitude you get to use that during trial is huge. You don't have to ask. It's coming in. They can't object, especially when it's something they entered into evidence.
Sure.
Well, I'm refreshing recollection.
I know, but
Sure.
show
And
us.
you show
That's
me what
what-
you're going
I would not have said I'm refreshing her recollection. I would say I'm questioning her on the evidence that's been admitted. Because by saying you're refreshing her recollection, it's technically under a different set of rules. You have to show it to the prosecutor. Prosecutor has to agree. Then you show it to the witness. Then the witness listens to it or watches it or reads it. Then you ask another question, as opposed to play it for the jury. It's in evidence. Then ask a question. That's what he should have done. I think would have been more effective.
It's a clip. So if you want to play the actual video of this interview, you can do that too.
Well, you have it. She's your witness now. You do what you want to do.
Okay, if you don't want to help us out.
She's literally looking at the jury as she says that stuff. And she's like, why would you ask me? She's your witness. You can do what you want to. 5 seconds ago, she was saying, why doesn't he use the transcript? I'm not going to tell him how to try his case. I mean, there are lawyers like her. Okay. By the way, Buddy's sitting right next to her who has to work with her every day. Probably doesn't love it either. She's a difficult person to deal with when trying a case. So how do you handle somebody like this? Especially sometimes if you're, people have told me this guy's a real estate lawyer. If you're a younger lawyer, whatever it may be, you don't do what he's doing right here. You do not engage with her. I would not engage with this lawyer one time during trial. You know what I would do? Judge, I'd like to play the clip. If they have an objection, they can tell the judge and we can have an argument about it. We can sidebar or whatever. I would not even ask that attorney a single question throughout this trial. When you know before the trial starts, the attorneys that are going to act like this. So I don't need to ask her anything. I don't need to ask her permission. If she has an objection, tell it to the judge and the judge will make a call. It's what the judge is paid for. I'm refreshing the recollection, judge. Here's the clip I'm going to use. Play it for the other side. Okay, here you go, other side. I don't care if you agree with it. But opening the door and talking to her and asking these questions, and then he's kind of whispering and she just blathers it out in front of the jury, which is totally inappropriate.
What you're saying, you don't want to play?
Well, you have it. She's your witness now. You do what you want to do.
Okay, if you don't want to help us out, is that what you're saying? You don't want to play?
Mr. Bowles,
Yeah.
you have it. You have computer.
And then it's also common, and I love doing it, when our tech is ready. Obviously, I'm not going to have it clipped out the way he does. But if he wants to play a certain part, we'll put it on that timestamp and do it. And it sounds like she's refusing to do that, but doesn't want to make it seem like that in front of the jury. And he's like, okay, you don't want to help us out. You guys have the endless resources of the state and you don't want to help us out, which she doesn't have to, but he's trying to make her look bad in front of the jury now. Like, you won't even help us out, when it really comes down to he didn't prepare ahead of time like he should have. All this is happening in front of the jury.
She's your witness.
Okay, now play. Your Honor, chat's better.
You're
than
going to
operating.
refresh her
I
memory.
still don't know what he's going to play.
Okay, all right.
Wait,
I have no idea what he's
Witness is like,
doing.
Yeah, I'm just
wait,
gonna play
you're
it.
not listening to. What are you showing her?
I'm playing her a clip of that video that was entered into evidence.
Which one, the first
The
one?
first one,
So I
The
think
first clip,
I think
which
this,
took 50 minutes?
but it's just a short clip. It's like 20 seconds.
so he needs to show it to me. Can we just step in the
Yeah.
right outside?
And then you don't want the jury to
hear.
hear it again because you're refreshing her her memory, not
It's
read.
already- Judge, it's entered into evidence.
and see, that's the problem. You don't want the jury to hear it if you're just refreshing her recollection. But the jury can hear it if you're just asking her about a piece of evidence, which he kind of starts to mix these arguments, saying it's in evidence, they can hear it. Yeah, but you said you're refreshing her recollection. Say, withdraw the refreshing of recollection. I'm going to play something for her and then ask her about it. Strike the last question.
That's not true. You're refreshing her memory.
No, but I could play it as if it's in evidence.
He's right.
Then play the exhibit.
They've heard it. Can I make an approach for a moment? Just
Yes.
clarify this?
Finally, they approach.
While we were, okay, Corporal, while we were kind of dealing with that, I want to come back to that question on the prop card loading. And again,
And then he comes back after sidebar and doesn't even ask. I don't know what was said. I don't know if he gave in. I don't know what happened, but stuff like that, when a lawyer like this prosecutor starts winning those types of battles where she's acting inappropriately in front of the jury, it's probably going to make her do it more, not less.
because Miss Gutierrez-Reed did not say that in the interview we just heard. She said she went outside with Dave Halls and unloaded the revolver. She didn't mention anything about a prop card. You agree with me on that?
So it would have been better if he would have played that part of the clip. Now he's summarizing. She's going to disagree. But if you play the clip, it's a lot harder for her to disagree.
Do not, because I do remember her saying something about doing it over a prop card.
Which interview, the first or second we heard?
I believe it was the first, and then the second is where she mentioned that she was in 2 separate places.
Okay, and so we're going to try to find that on the first. And if you can find it, when we come back and redirect them, I want to hear it. So if you
That's never going to happen. It's like multiple times, and I think we might hear multiple today, where he asks a state witness on the stand to go back and find something to help his defense. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. Now, this guy, he seems like a nice guy. He does not seem like a jerk. He doesn't seem like he's doing anything underhanded. But like, you can't ask this witness to go back and pull a clip that you want. And it's up to the jury to remember what they heard and what they watched. And they're going to be able to do that back in the jury room at the end of the trial.
Find that timestamp. Now, you also said that you did not meet Seth Kinney until October 27th, until the search of the prop truck, correct?
I believe that was the first time.
So then he quibbles about whether she met him or talked to him on the phone. I didn't think it was super effective. He compares and contrasts how she treated Baldwin versus how she treated Hannah. He gets her to admit that she was distraught and it was a horrible day, and they questioned her, and she even like thought about maybe she should have a lawyer or not, basically trying to say you pressured her, you coerced her. That's never a great thing to have to do if you're a defense lawyer, because it almost seems like you're trying to get away from or explain a confession, right? Like a coerced confession. So, you know, that's kind of tough, that a lot of people are probably going to see, oh, he must not like what she said if he's trying to give she was distraught, it was a traumatic event. And then on redirect, the prosecutor comes and is like, yeah, trauma can make you have memory issues. So can drugs, can it? It's like, ugh. That seems inappropriate to me, especially if they don't know that she was on drugs that day, but wild. So from the chat, I'm reading some of it. What is your thought on how this lawyering is going? Thoughts on the prosecutor, thoughts on the defense attorney? Just let me know in the chat. What's up, Patrick? Good to see you in the chat. He gets into whether or not, you know, they were tricking her, being nice to her, knowing they were going to use it against her like every cop always does. Some people hate that. Some people don't. Let's jump ahead here a little bit.
Is that what the intent was?
No,
Okay, well then, did you believe this theory?
believe the
They're
theory
talking about the theory that somebody from the crew could have sabotaged the weapons.
about the camera crew.
The sabotage that you threw out, that the sheriffs put out. Did you believe there was some truth to that?
No,
Okay, so you put out a false theory.
And I'm going to object. She didn't put out a false theory. She didn't say it in the interview. It simply wasn't her.
Okay, well then,
Again, inappropriate speaking, objection, not how it's supposed to be done. You don't get to make your argument for the jury. And look, she is literally, if you see her face, she's literally looking at the jury as she makes these arguments. That's the type of stuff that's so annoying. It's like sometimes it happens. I get it. You get carried away in court, whatever it may be. But she's like performing for the jury during her objections. And it's a little frustrating to watch. And again, part of it is the defense attorney's fault. Like, she leads witnesses to water. She puts words in her witness's mouth, exactly what you're not allowed to do on direct and redirect. He just doesn't object enough, and he backs off his objections too much. And it would make sense if people are saying he's a real estate lawyer. Maybe he doesn't try a lot of cases, but she is just getting away with it. And I guarantee when it's the defense's case in chief, she's not going to let him get away with leading questions. It makes your job so much easier if you can lead the witness. And she has done it all trial.
Talamonte put out a false theory.
again, it's an interview, so we can discuss things, bring up things to, again, try to get questions answered and figure out how to or where to go with our investigation.
Okay, and trying to get answers from people through a false idea. Did you ever actually investigate the camera crew? Did you interview any of them?
I did not interview them, no.
Did anybody in your team interview any of them?
I believe Detective Joel Cano did.
How many of them did he interview?
That would be a question for Detective Joel Cano.
Okay, and you as the case agent don't know that?
No.
And you don't know what the result of those interviews are?
I would have to read his reports.
And also on that idea,
No, because really what's important to law enforcement were the circumstances of what occurred that day and the facts and the evidence of what occurred during the incident.
okay, well then, Ms. Morrissey asked you earlier if you had any information as to Seth Kinney bringing live rounds on set, but what you just said is you were more focused on the events of the day. Is that correct?
That was our main focus, yes.
So is it fair to say, would you agree with me that you didn't fully investigate the circumstances of these reloads?
I would say that we investigated it.
But you did not fully investigate it because you were more focused on the events of the actual day. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Now, you also talked about earlier that it was kind of a circumstantial theory about Ms. Gutierrez-Reed, but you have no direct evidence that you can tell the jury today that she brought live rounds to set.
That's correct.
So that was a big moment for me. Now, we all know the difference between direct and circumstantial evidence, and maybe the prosecutor pointed out in their closing, but that was a really easy answer for him, that there was no direct evidence that Hannah brought the live rounds on set. That at least sounds like a win for the defense, right? And something you can use later.
I remember you had told me at one point that when you interviewed Sarah Zachary, she gave conflicting information. Do you believe?
So now he kind of goes into, again, trying to point the finger at Zachary and Baldwin and Seth Kenny, and how Seth Kenny was trying to pin it on Hannah. Later, when the prosecutor redirects, it's like, well, Mr. Bowles was calling you too, and Hannah's dad was calling. So everybody was calling the cops, trying to get the person that they were working for or with out of trouble. Not unusual. We talked about this, how you do this in the pre-charge situation lots of times as a lawyer or somebody involved in these situations. Usually it goes better than it did here once your lawyer gets involved. All right, more bickering here.
Ms. Zachary and Mr. Kenny had text and a phone call, correct?
Yes.
And you remember that there was words to the effect that there had been a shooting,
I believe the text message said emergency.
emergency. Do you know what they discussed?
Hang on, we're back to hearsay, and so I want to make a hearsay objection. I can't figure out what the exception would be to this.
All you do is say objection, hearsay. That's all you're supposed to say.
And again, Your Honor, I'll word in terms of her course of her investigation and the effect. And it's not for the truth. I'm just trying to find out.
Well, let's see if it meets the effect on listener. I haven't
Okay.
heard that yet.
I guess my concern is that what's going to happen here is Mr. Bowles is just going to get a bunch of hearsay out, the jury's going to hear it, and then maybe it doesn't have an effect on the listener, and then hearsay's just out, and then we just.
It's just not how you're supposed to do it. Like, I don't know how the judge doesn't say, stop, come up to sidebar. Somebody said it was the judge sleeping, Brooklyn basement. I don't think she is, but it's like, why is this allowed? So he's just going to inappropriately say all this hearsay stuff, and then it's not going to be effect on the listener. And then the jury's heard all the hearsay. Totally inappropriate.
Broken the rules of evidence. So is there a way we can do this? And then maybe it doesn't have an effect on the listener, and then hearsay's just out, and then we've just broken the rules of evidence. So is there a way we can do this so that Mr. Bowles doesn't get to spend the next
Why
half an
don't
hour?
you just ask her if any text message between the two of them, what, if anything, it had on the effect of the investigation?
Yes, I was going to ask you that. And we're going to have Sarah Zachary as a witness. So we're not going to, but
He's like, all this stuff's going to come out anyway, but it's got to come out during the appropriate witness. Then the judge tells him how to ask a question. It's like, it's not a great look in front of the jury where the prosecutor's demeaning you and telling you how to do your job. The judge has to tell you how to ask questions appropriately. My guess is the jury's sitting there looking like not very impressed with him, which I think sucks. It's unfortunate.
the after the phone call and text occurred, did you learn and did you investigate whether rounds had been thrown away on the set, on the scene?
I received a statement of that.
Okay, that rounds had been thrown away on the
Sorry, counsel.
And they always like approach
Again, that was
late.
a
I
statement
feel
in
like.
an interview.
whether rounds were thrown away.
Again, that was a statement in an interview.
And I'm not asking about the statement. I'm asking if you investigated that at all.
I'm not really sure how to, if you want to reword it a different way.
Sure. Did you try to locate rounds that were thrown away?
Over a month later.
I'm just asking a question if you tried to do that. Okay.
Or
All
in a
right. So,
different way.
so I
Sure.
want to play this part because we're going to listen to her smirk when he's asking her if they looked through the trash to see if there were any live rounds or anything else that was thrown away, right? So she laughs at him like, what an idiot. You think I'm going to find anything important a month later? But guess what? When did they go search PDQ and Seth Kenny? Wasn't it like over a month later? And that's why they said, oh, well, that's how we eliminated Seth Kenny as a suspect. And that's how we decided not to file charges against Seth Kenny. It's like, but that was over a month later. So you weren't expecting to find anything because he could have gotten rid of anything that mattered. He could have cleaned up. That could have been his PDQ headquarters cleaned up. Imagine what it would look like a month earlier. So I think she kind of just shot some of her testimony in the foot by saying, oh, anything that's a month old, we were never going to find anything important. Why would I even go look in the trash?
Again, that was a statement in an interview.
And I'm not asking about the statement. I'm asking if you investigated that at all.
I'm not really sure how to, if you want to reword it a different way.
Sure. Did you try to locate rounds that were thrown away?
Over a month later,
I'm just asking the question if you tried to do that. Okay.
that statement was given over a month later.
And likewise, the search of PD2 props was over a month after the shooting incident, correct?
Correct.
And so there would have been time for Mr. Kinney, had he wanted to get rid of evidence if he had wanted to. Is that a fair statement?
If he had wanted to.
Yeah, but she doesn't think he had wanted to, so he couldn't have wanted to, right? All right, we'll keep listening.
Did you also investigate whether items had been taken from the prop cart to the prop truck after the shooting? Because Ms. Gutierrez-Reed made that statement.
And Mr. Bowles, can you just tell her what statement you're referring to? I think this is not hearsay, so I think Ms. Gutierrez's statement.
Why doesn't he just ask if she did that without the added part unless
Sure.
it's necessary?
Yes, and I just was trying to ask her if you investigated whether items had been taken from the prop cart to the prop truck.
Can you give a time period?
Yes, right after the shooting, before law enforcement got there.
So during the investigation, it was relayed to me that there had been firearms that were secured back in the prop truck.
And my question was, did you investigate to determine whether that was correct?
I'm not really, I mean, I'd say it was a statement given to me, and we had done a search in the prop trunk.
Okay,
So,
were you able to corroborate that?
well, I don't know exactly what guns were identified to which actor, so I can't really say.
Okay, so you didn't.
I would say that we followed up on it.
You also saw on the video where a man at the scene had reached across the crime scene tape. Recall that video?
Yes.
You recall seeing his hand that it was kind of like this, and he put it down on the cart over the tape. Do you recall seeing that?
I recall seeing him grab something off the cart and then putting it back.
Do you recall seeing his hand being behind his back and coming around sort of shaped like this, and then go over the tape onto the cart?
No.
You don't recall seeing?
And Your Honor, this is Mr. Bowles testifying. Mr. Bowles is testifying because he didn't get the right information from Minnetonka.
Move on.
I will.
Mr. Bowles is testifying because he didn't get the right information from Minnetonka.
Move on.
Mr. Bowles is testifying because he didn't get the right information from what? Again, that's not how you do it. You don't say he's testifying because he didn't get what he wanted. I don't understand how the judge allows this. I honestly don't. No reprimanding, no telling her to be quiet, no telling her to stop, no telling her to save it for sidebar. Throughout this entire interaction, it's crazy to me. Like, I would be so pissed. I'd be like, Judge, what was the objection there? Because I'm not sure what the objection there when she said that I was doing something because I didn't get what I wanted, which is totally inappropriate in front of the jury. It's so frustrating.
I will.
And then he just moves on.
You don't know whether he put something on the cart or whether he took something off, do you?
And I will object to foundation because this witness wasn't there.
That's why I asked her if she didn't know. That's why I said you don't know.
These are totally appropriate. Are they the best questions in the world? No, but they're totally appropriate. Somebody comes and testifies like they know everything. So what do you do as a defense attorney sometimes? Like, you weren't there, right? So you don't actually know who handed who the gun. You don't know where any of the evidence came from. You don't know where any of the ammunition came from. You don't know where anybody was standing. All you have is what people told you, right? Because you weren't there. Totally appropriate line of questioning. And frankly, the prosecutor's just highlighting it even more by objecting, but the judge isn't letting him do it. I don't get it. I don't get it.
All right. So she's already said that she doesn't know. So let's move on.
He can ask her that she doesn't know every single thing if he wants to. You don't know what they did before lunch, do you? You weren't there. You don't know what email was sent that night. You don't know what text message was sent 2 days before. You don't know what they talked about on set 3 days ago.
Now, I want to ask you more about Seth Kenney. You never took his fingerprints, correct?
Correct.
And you never took his DNA, correct?
That's correct.
And you also never took his phone to be downloaded like the other phones that you took, right?
That's correct.
So, Mr. Kenney, I know you mentioned had shown you certain text messages and other information, but you never got the entirety of what was on his phone, correct?
It wasn't a full extraction, if that's what you're referring to.
Yes, right. It was not a full extraction.
That's correct.
And in contrast, you got extractions of phones for Ms. Gutierrez-Reed, Sarah Zachary, Mr. Halls, and Mr. Baldwin, correct?
Yes, because they were on the set.
Okay, and you had mentioned that before, but actually Seth Kenney was the primary source of ammunition to the set.
I will
correct?
object to the form of that question. It is completely contrary to the evidence that the jury has heard, and Mr. Bowles knows it.
Actually, Your Honor,
Do you hear that? Like, I'm going to object. That's completely contrary to what was said. And Mr. Bowles knows it. First off, she's just wrong. she's wrong. And we have the benefit of replaying what he asked. He said PDQ and Seth Kenney was the primary source of ammunition, which is absolutely what has been testified to and how the evidence has gone. Not the only source of ammunition, but the primary. And if you're going to object and spout off like this prosecutor, you better listen to every word and you better be right. Because people have been asking, like, is this going to be an appellate issue I've seen coming through the chat? Questions like this. It could be if the appellate court feels it went too far. It usually is not. But it could be if the appellate court felt this went too far. So we're going to hear it again where he says Kenney was the primary source, and then how the prosecutor says that that Mr. Bowles is knowingly falsifying or misstating evidence.
He had mentioned that before, but actually Seth Kenney was the primary source of ammunition to the set.
I will
right?
object to the form of that question. It is completely contrary to the evidence that the jury has heard, and Mr. Bowles knows it.
Actually, Your Honor,
Really contrary to the evidence that the jury has heard, and Mr. Bowles knows it.
I don't. And I'm asking her a question. It's perfectly permissible to ask her. If she
Go ahead
disagrees,
and ask the question.
okay. But my question,
No reprimand. And look at the prosecutor smiling over there because she got the cheap shot in she wanted to. Man, does that make me mad. Like sitting over there watching her act like this and then smirk like that would be so frustrating in trial. I would go up and call a sidebar every time she did it. I'd be like, Judge, let's talk about it up here. Are you going to tell her to stop doing that in front of the jury or no? I want it on the record that you're refusing to tell her to only make speaking objections and speak appropriately in front of the jury. I don't care if the judge gets mad at me at that point. You cannot be having lawyering like this.
question to you is, were you aware that Seth Kenney was the primary ammunition supplier to the set?
I don't know if I would say primary, but he was a source of ammunition.
Okay, he was a source of
Hannah Gutierrez says she brought 2 boxes.
ammunition to the set. And knowing that, isn't it true that it would be possible for his fingerprints to be on the boxes or ammunition he supplied?
It could be possible.
And in fact, you submitted for potential fingerprints, those 4 blank rounds that we saw earlier to the FBI, right?
Yes.
But you did not send any of the live rounds for fingerprint testing.
I think that was discussed with the FBI. Why?
And I understand that, but why would it be different in your understanding to send the blanks versus the live rounds?
I'm sorry, the blanks.
The blanks you sent for fingerprint testing, why were they different? And why could you not have sent the live round? Why is there a difference?
Do you mean the cartridges?
The cartridges.
Okay, those
I'm
aren't
sorry.
blanks.
I'm not blanks. I'm sorry. The cartridges you sent, you're right. Already fired cartridges that you sent. Why is that different
I'm
than
going to jump
the
ahead a little bit.
live round? Ammo that had a steel wool in that picture. Do you recall that?
I do not, I'm sorry.
I want to show that to you.
And this is, he's trying to show her a picture that everybody knows is going to come into evidence and the prosecutor is going to make it difficult.
So I do have an objection. This photo is not in evidence, and I don't know that the photo can come into evidence through this witness. Would you like to approach, or?
I want to see what he's gonna do.
All right. No. I told you the other picture from Mr. Kenney was coming in during his testimony. That is a photo that you should have gotten in through Ms. Popple, and you can call her back if you want to.
Well, if you want to.
So everybody knows that witness is or that piece of evidence is coming in. The witness that testified has already testified for the state, and she's like, you should have got in during there, and you didn't. So you can recall her if you want to get it in. Technically, that's fine, and you can do it. Probably shouldn't say it like that in front of the jury. And frankly, why? We're just going to delay everything for no reason? We're going to waste the time of the court, waste the time of the jury. Frankly, if I had to recall Ms. Popple or whatever, I would say, Ms. Popple, I'm sorry I had to bring you back. The state would not stipulate to this. I'd ask her 2 questions. Is this the picture that you took? Is it authentic? Thank you. Enter into evidence. Sorry for wasting your time and the jury's time because the prosecutor. Now, I wouldn't actually do that, but that's the type of response this person deserves. So the jury knows that she's wasting their time as part of like a legal game. Everybody knows that this is coming in.
I'm ask her if she recognizes it. If I
Oh,
may
yes.
approach her.
Be my guest.
Yeah, you can look at this photo. See if you recognize that box.
I can say for certain.
So you don't remember seeing this particular box and the steel wool and the rounds in here? You don't remember this from the
Your
search?
Honor, asked and answered. She's already said.
Sustain.
Okay, we'll call Officer Popple back. Let me ask
He
you this.
like tries to act like it doesn't faze him, but it's got to be so annoying. And it throws off this cross. It wastes time that he's going to have Popple come back in. And then is he going to have to recall this officer to cross her again? It's all really frustrating.
How many times have you prepped your testimony with Miss Morrissey?
Here we go. This is the best part of the cross potentially, is when they start to talk about preparation, and then on redirect, it gets even better, meaning worse.
A few.
How many times have you met with her? How many days?
I couldn't say an exact number.
Was it 2? Was it 3?
Again, I couldn't say an exact number.
So you don't know how many days you've met to prepare.
An exact number? No, and
No.
I don't want to just assume.
Okay. Have you talked to her on the phone about it?
Yes.
Did you go over the questions she was going to ask you and your answers?
Yes.
So in essence, you practiced for today, right?
Yes.
So your testimony that you've gone over these exhibits, you've gone over what you're going to say today.
That's correct.
So when you gave those answers earlier, in fact,
They
You knew
literally practiced the questions and the answers and the exact exhibits. It's one thing to prepare, tell the story, whatever, but to go through the exact questions and answers, how does that make you think as a jury? I mean, for preparation's okay, but I think there is a line potentially.
what a particular exhibit number was 48. That was something you all had discussed, wasn't it?
I don't believe the specific exhibit number, but again, she showed me when she would ask about it.
On a break?
Just now when she
Right.
would ask about
I'm
it.
sorry, I don't know off the top of my head what Exhibit 48 is, and I don't know that the witness does, so.
It doesn't matter if you know what it is. That's not an objection. I'm sorry, objection. I don't know what exhibit 48 is on top of my head, and I don't know that the witness does either. It's like, come again. Well, what's the objection? And if the witness doesn't know and needs clarification, she says that. She says, I don't know what you're talking about. Horrible. It's horrible.
In order for this to make sense,
She didn't ask for clarification.
All right.
I think we're
Thank
just
you,
Going
Judge.
over this.
Correct.
well, if he's mentioning me, I don't know what he's talking about.
Okay.
Nobody cares. You're not on the witness stand. Be like, Judge, is she just testifying? I don't understand what's happening here.
She was the one that
Let's
corrected you,
move
right?
on.
Yes, I will, Your Honor. Did Miss Morrissey correct you, or was it somebody else?
Yes, she did.
So she was there talking to you, right? Or on the phone or in person? She was the one talking to you. correct?
Yes, it's pretty normal to prep with the attorney you're working with for a trial.
Did you help prep other witnesses in this case with Miss Morrissey? Were you present?
No.
Okay. As a case agent, I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just wondering if you were present during other interviews.
Asked and answered. She already said no.
Move on.
Now, Mr. Baldwin, I want to talk about him. You and Mr. Baldwin had
All right, I'm going to jump forward a little bit more where it sounds like a bit of a schoolyard fight here between the lawyers.
You can hand those back.
Can I just read her statement?
No, it's refreshing your memory.
Okay.
You wanted to quote, it's refreshing your memory. So
Okay.
you can remember from memory.
What are you saying? Mr.
She's
Baldwin?
looking at the prosecutor. She's literally looking at the prosecutor while she's trying to determine what she's going to do. She's only supposed to read part of it to refresh her recollection, not the whole thing. She wants to read more. The judge tells her not to. And then the defense lawyer says something under his breath, and the prosecutor explodes.
Your memory. So
Okay.
you can remember from memory.
What are you saying, Mr. Bowles? Are you speaking to me?
Yes, I'm saying,
What would you like, sir?
we're trying to get to the truth. That's what I.
You talking about me, sir? You talking about me, Mr. Bowles? Literally, like, it reminds me of like when I was in high school or middle school, somebody's like trying to start a fight. Like, did you just bump my shoulder, bro? She's like, you talking to me? I'm right here. That's what it sounds like. She said it's crazy.
What are you saying, Mr. Bowles? Are you speaking to me?
Yes, I'm saying,
What would you like, sir?
we're trying to get to the truth. That's what I think.
All right, you all. You all, ask your question. I'll let you have coffee. Let's focus here with our.
Judge is like, take these with the caffeine. And Bowles is like, I'm just trying to get to the truth.
Ask if she remembers what was said to her.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Ma'am, do you remember now the exact words that were said?
Yes.
And what were those?
Her statement was, I took them all out. It was there on the cart too.
Okay, and again, and this is entered into evidence.
And again, this is the problem with quibbling with words. Did she take it apart over the cart or near the cart or whatever? Not worth all this fight. You should have a better impeachment than that, my opinion. Later, the judge is like, listen, with all this interview talk and impeachment and inconsistent statements, you guys are going to have the opportunity to watch it and make your own conclusion. Now, there's another big fight. There's more objections, all this stuff. And they take a break. And the defense just sits down after the break. Doesn't end on a high note. Doesn't end with a punch. Pretty bad ending to this witness for the defense. Redirect. Again, they talk about drugs potentially affecting your memory. The defendant finally wins an objection. They can't read Hannah Gutierrez's dad's statement. She investigated, came to the conclusions that basically Hannah's the defendant sitting over there, not Seth Kenny, not Sarah Zachary. And then the prosecutor tries to rehab and make it seem like, no, we didn't prep that much. We really didn't prep that much together. It's not like I told you what to say, right? It's so funny when a prosecutor asks questions and they think the witness is going to pick up what they're putting down, and they absolutely don't.
You met with me on another occasion to prepare on another case. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why is it important for you to meet with the prosecuting attorney before you testify?
A lot of it is to refresh myself with, parts of the case and what I need to focus on, especially because this is such a big case. As you can see, I have a large binder and a large box. So it helps me to narrow down the facts that I need to focus on.
Totally reasonable.
And have you given truthful testimony
Just stop there. Totally reasonable. But she doesn't.
today?
Yes.
When you met with me, did I tell you what to say?
We talked about what was going to be discussed.
Did I tell you what testimony to give?
Yes.
What
It's like, what? She for sure. She's like, did I tell you what to say? Yes. I'm supposed to be honest, right? I'm telling that you just asked if I told the truth. Look at the prosecutor's face. She's like you can tell her, she's like, did I tell you what to say?
Helps me to narrow down the facts that I need to focus on.
And have you given truthful testimony today?
Yes.
When you met with me, did I tell you what to say?
I mean, look, did I tell you what to say? Did I?
We talked about what was going to be discussed.
Did I tell you what testimony to give?
Yes.
What did I tell you to give? Did I tell you to tell a lie?
No.
That is, now she's leading the witness. Did I tell you to tell a lie? Did I tell you to tell the truth? And that's what you did, right? This is leading the witness. You cannot let the prosecutor lead the witness. Don't let her put the answers in the witness' mouth, because look what witnesses do sometimes when you force them to answer the question.
You're telling the truth?
Yes, I am.
Leading.
I tell you to tell the truth?
Yes.
And we know that you had an interview with Ms. Gutierrez on the 21st of October and again on November 9th of 2021. On November 9th, did it appear to you that Ms. Gutierrez had been prepped by her attorney?
Yes.
Of course, because nobody says there's anything wrong with being prepped. But when the witness says you told her what to say, that's not a great look. That's not going your way. All right, so that was the end of that witness. And then I believe the next witness was Gabrielle Pickle, line producer, focusing on managing budget, project manager type stuff. Hannah asked for double day or more days as an armorer. She gave them to her. They kind of, quibbled about whether it was 8 or 10 days. She told Hannah she can't leave firearms unattended. So Hannah was literally reprimanded. So again, on notice, it's foreseeable that you're breaching your duty. Hannah was offered additional support on both jobs, admin duties. She didn't complain again once they gave her more support. There was a way that they wanted to help Hannah Gutierrez figure out a way to track the guns better. And she was like, no, that's too complicated. We're working on something. It's going to be fine. It wasn't. Okay. Another spot again, where the defense lawyer is asking state witnesses to do work for him. Let's listen to a little bit of that.
On day 6, and this would be day 7 of 8 of her training days, her armor days. Do you recall that?
Mhm.
Does that change your opinion as to how many armor days she had, that she had 8 as opposed to 10?
No, I believe her armor days, and we can check the pay stubs, but I believe she had the 10 armor days. It may have been that 8 were filming days, and 2 were training days. I do not recall the exact split, but I do recall it being 10 days.
If you are able to, can you pull those pay stubs?
I don't have access to them anymore.
Okay.
That would be.
We've also have you under subpoena. You're aware of that, right?
I can call you. It's like, yeah, you can call her and she can give you the same answer. Do you have the pay stubs? If you don't have a subpoena ducis tecum for the pay stubs, if you didn't already discover the pay stubs, it's going to be tough for her to just go get them in one day when you call her back. It's not really how it works. That's why we have rules of discovery.
Okay. And so we may
Again, kind of clunky. Then on redirect, near the end of the day, let's see, 8:06. So this is another time where I think the state becomes inappropriate again.
Did Ms. Gutierrez respond to you and say, right on?
Yes.
She's reading from document not admitted in evidence.
And can I refresh your memory again?
Yes.
No, just don't read.
Yes.
And do you recall the language of her response? Did Ms. Gutierrez respond to you and say, right on?
Yes.
She's reading from document not admitted in evidence.
And can I refresh your memory again?
Yes.
No, just don't read.
Okay. Do you want me to ask the question again without reading it? Okay. Did Ms. Gutierrez respond to you and say, right on?
Yes, she did.
I thought that's,
No, just did she respond to you?
did she respond to you?
She did.
Well, no, we've already done it, so just
Okay.
move on.
Judge is like, you've already broken the rules. Just move on.
Move to strike that. This
Fine,
was-
I'll strike the answer. Okay. The question and answer.
Ma'am, do you recall what Ms. Gutierrez's response was to you when you said no more training days?
Right on.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Did reviewing these messages refresh your memory as to whether or not you told Ms. Gutierrez that she would have 10 total armor days?
That's hearsay. What you told somebody is hearsay, especially when you're saying you just looked at these text messages. She knew it. The lawyer should object again. He just won a couple objections, but he doesn't. So she's allowed to do it.
Yes, it is confirmed in that text chain that we both knew that there were 10 armor days,
Not 8.
not 8, 10.
It's
Now, we
frustrating.
understand that you, Russ Productions hired Ms. Gutierrez to be armor.
And then she talks about how, Hannah Gutierrez agreed to both of those roles. All right. Then we get into today's testimony. And right when this guy started, the firearms expert, I was like, oh boy, this is not going to be good for Hannah Gutierrez, because this guy seems like about as big shot of an armor as you can be. And the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, yeah, easy for him to say he's a big shot. He works on the biggest movies probably, and he can walk off. He's not trying to build his career. I did get that. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it is kind of a difference in the way this guy's testifying than clearly how it was for Hannah Gutierrez. But the defense attorney, I thought, did a good job of making that point as well. Alicia said, will this be the same prosecutor and judge as the Alec Baldwin case? Wonder how his defense and this prosecutor will play. I know it's the same prosecutor. I think it's the same judge. Cam, just wanted to say you're truly an inspiration and one of the reasons I chose to attend law school. But this defense lawyer has no control on cross. He has really struggled, Cam. He has really struggled. Again, sometimes I think his methodical personality works. Other times I think it could be better. Samantha asked, can the female defense attorney object or only Mr. Bowles? Only Bowles if it's his witness. So usually it's one lawyer per witness. If it is one of the female attorney's witnesses, then she can do the objecting. Caitlin, I think the state is putting on a pretty good case so far, but yeesh, if I were a juror, the prosecutor would have me searching for a reason to acquit. I love this comment because I agree. I think the state has presented a pretty good case and the witnesses have done a good job for me to be like, I can't overlook this. Legally, the definition, the statute for involuntary manslaughter, Hannah Gutierrez had a duty she breached to the nth degree. She basically did nothing right and nothing that was safe. We saw clips of it today. Even the way she carried the firearms was unsafe. But oh boy, would I hate to let her win. Can't think about that as a juror. You can't. That cannot come into play. If you're feeling the way we're talking about, we're feeling the evidence is pointed, you have to convict. Now, it's not over yet, so we can't make up our minds. But our distaste for certain lawyers cannot affect our verdict. Daphne, can she go to jail for this or is it a fine? She can go to jail for this. Absolutely can go to jail. All right, so we're going to listen to him talk a little bit about everything he does, how safe it needs to be, and what a heightened standard it seems to be, again, of all the stuff you need to do to be a safe armorer.
That ammunition and quality control of that ammunition.
Well, again, we get back to the first thing is making sure it's sourced from a legitimate and vetted place. I source most of mine from ISS, Independent Studio Services, out of California. They have a excellent safety standard there. They have an entire gun department where they check these weapons in, check them out. All of these items are checked extensively. I used to have an instructor said to me that, complacency kills and you can't be safe enough. You cannot check things enough. So having multiple layers of safety is important. So I say that to say this.
And that all makes sense. And we see in this case that would have prevented this tragedy. if she checked it before lunch, after lunch, before she handed it to Baldwin, told Baldwin to check it, she would have done all those things, a lot less likely that this would have happened.
From that location, you already have a sense that they're going to be what they should be and they're going to be in the condition they should be in. However, falling back to that last statement, when we receive these items in or an armor receive those items in, it's important to also double verify that. So the first thing that would be done would be a safety check and an audit of all items that came in, including and especially any dummy rounds or blanks.
So it's the armorer's responsibility to take those rounds from the supplier
That's right.
and double check them.
That's correct.
Now, in terms of,
By the way, leading question. She leads this witness too, puts words in his mouth. We need to have objections there.
the amount of discretion that the armorer generally has on set, can the armorer stop filming because of safety issues?
Absolutely, you would hope that you don't get to that point because there's very few people that can call cut or just stop a movie in its tracks. There's 3 departments on a movie set that can cause the loss of life if not done properly. That's special effects, stunts, and armor services. Those 3 things are very important that safety be upheld at the highest level. And yes, if you find or see or find yourself in a position
Yeah, I mean, this guy crushed. This guy crushed. When you compare, this is what an armorer is supposed to do, and Hannah Gutierrez reads like the definition of a negligent armorer, but there are differences on types of movies, budgets, things like that, trying to get your foot in the door, and that does come up on Cross. We'll talk about that a little bit.
where something extremely unsafe is happening, you can call cut and stop the production.
Is the armorer working for the actor? And what I mean by that is, can the armorer tell the actor what to do and not to do when it comes to firearms and firearm safety?
The quick and straight answer is yes.
Of course he's going to say that, but it's like, but she's young, inexperienced, and talking to Alec Baldwin. Now, whose fault is that? Whatever. But these are less, in my opinion, damning arguments than the like simple stuff when you see her carrying the gun a certain way, when she didn't in fact check it the way she should, when she was just bringing random ammo from her car and sticking it in a box and loading it. That's the stuff that's like mind blowing to me. The fact that she wasn't a perfect A+ armorer to me is a bit of a different standard. And if that's all they had, maybe it wouldn't be enough, but they have a lot more to include the videos that they play, the clips of that we're going to see some of, like the behind the scenes footage. How far up is that? About 20 minutes up. The behind the scenes footage is pretty wild to me. Where is it? All right. So they start talking about, and I'll play a little bit of it, but this is a rifle of some sort. And this guy's just carrying it around, pointing it at people. There's the minor actor here that has firearms pointed at him. He talks about how the gun should never leave the sight of the armorer. Half of these, Hannah Gutierrez reads nowhere in sight. Whenever you start to get rushed, that's when you have to slow down even more. I agree with it. I like that. But is that plausible in this type of a movie? But he was saying she needs to step in. She needs to tell this guy pointed at the ground, practice gun safety. And she does that not at all that you can see. The defense gets up and says, well, you don't know if she did it after this clip or somewhere off the camera. And he's like, that's true. It could have happened. It's possible, but this is really bad. And there were tons of examples. I mean, that gun's just pointed all over the place.
Can you all hear? You want it up a little bit more. Up, a little bit more.
I'm going to stop the video here. Are we okay?
Well, they said they'd like it up a little bit more.
Okay.
Sure.
Let's see if we can.
We can't do it. George says.
They show some clips even of Alec Baldwin being unsafe, and he says that's Hannah Gutierrez's job to fix that. She needs to fix it. It's her job. You can't take this job if you're not willing to keep people safe. Let me see if I can play this, just this 1 minute clip that I thought was a pretty good summation. And here's part of the Alec Baldwin scenes where he's
No!
after cut, he fires it,
So-
he goes off script, that type of stuff. Okay, sorry, I was going to get to. So one of the big questions is she has lack of experience. It's not her fault. She was set up to fail. So the prosecutor, I think, does a good job bringing out this evidence of, is lack of experience an excuse? Does that make you not negligent? Does that drop your duty down?
Obviously, Ms. Gutierrez is not as experienced as you are. Does her lack of experience, in your opinion, change the amount of responsibility she has as the armorer on the movie set?
Once you take, I would like to expound on that.
Sharon,
if
move
you
your
don't.
microphone a little closer if you can, if it will move. Okay.
Once you take on the responsibility of safety for another person, you take on the responsibility of making sure that you do what's necessary, even if it's inconvenient, even if it's not in your best interest. And if that isn't something that you feel capable of doing, then you should never step into that position. And it's unfortunate, I feel, that Ms. Gutierrez's experience level on this film may not have worked in her favor. Is the best thing I could probably say there. However, she took the position, and therefore these people on the movie set depended on her guidance and her professionalism to keep anyone from being harmed. And convenience isn't an option at that point.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I'll pass the witness.
Yeah,
Can I
good
come
spot to
forward?
end. So that's how she ended her direct. Lack of experience is not an excuse. And I think the jury needed to hear that. On cross, I thought he did a good job talking about there's no governing body, how there should have been multiple armors on set, how your resume is so great. But basically this, you would have never taken this job. You would have walked off this job. They couldn't have afforded you. It never was going to happen. There is something I want to play here from early on in the cross here. Let's listen to a little bit of this cross. I think there are some good points the defense makes.
Mr. Halls, the first assistant director. I don't know if you knew what he looked like, but Ms. Morrissey said to assume. Did you see that individual?
I did.
Okay. Now, in certain videos that we saw, if Ms. Gutierrez-Reed is not present, do you understand under the safety bulletin that then that falls to the first assistant director for responsibility for safety?
The safety aspect, yes, but the gun handling, no.
Okay. So under that scenario, if Ms. Gutierrez-Reed, for example, has been sent off to do props duties, would it be incumbent on the first assistant director to call her back? Somebody call her back to come back and deal with the gun handling?
Yes.
Okay.
So it was a little question, just one little thing right there. But I'm starting to think there's another good argument for the defense. Basically, if Halls is aiding in armor duties and handling the gun, he shouldn't be. Okay, that's fine. But what if Hannah Gutierrez is sent off to do prop duty, out of the room, offset? Isn't it David Halls' responsibility to call her to bring her back so she can do her job? And he said yes. And if that's the answer, now, was Hannah Gutierrez negligent all over this set? Yes. Was she carrying the weapons the wrong way herself? Yes. Was she allowing other people to? Yes. Was she as strict as she should have been? No. Did she potentially bring bad ammo on set? Maybe, but they didn't prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. All of that to the side. She was absolutely negligent on set, but was she negligent right here in this moment? And did her negligence cause this fatality? Because if she was supposed to be called into that room and she checked the gun again and gave it to Baldwin and this happened, then boom, she is. But she was never given the opportunity to even be negligent in that moment because David Halls did not call her to come back on scene like he was supposed to because she was doing her other job. Therefore, she had no duty in that moment. She didn't breach the duty. She was not negligent in that moment. David Halls was, and Alec Baldwin was. I think that's a pretty decent answer you got right there to develop that argument. I really think it is. I'm not just trying to hyperbolize here or make a bigger deal out of it. I'll back it up so we can hear the question again.
If Ms. Gutierrez-Reed, for example, has been sent off to do props duties, would it be incumbent on the first assistant director to call her back? Somebody call her back to come back and deal with the gun handling?
Yes.
Okay. So if there's a circumstance where that happens, you would expect as a professional armor with your years of experience, somebody to call her back and say, come back, we need you on this gun scene.
Right. If there was a firearm needed to be delivered to or used in a scene, then yes, they should have called her back. She should have been present.
Okay, sir. And with regard to the union that we talked about briefly, in the
We don't need to talk about the union, but that was a good point to me. And then the defense attorney, again, they talked about Baldwin going off script and some of those clips that we have. And this was just supposed to be a blocking scene. He could have used a stick. There was no reason to have to use a real firearm. So once again, Hannah Gutierrez had no idea that a firearm was going to be used. Baldwin was going off script. David Halls didn't call her back. She was never even given the opportunity to be negligent or to do her job in that moment. What she was doing other parts of the day did not affect this, except for the live rounds, right? They can still argue that her negligence in bringing live rounds on, if they feel like they proved that beyond a reasonable doubt, that did lead to the fatality. But in that moment, if it's the duty of the assistant director, David Halls, to go get her, and he didn't do that, now he's starting to say, I mean, he did say it's the duty of the armor to always be there with the weapon, never let it out of your sight, double check it, always be the one to hand it to the actor. So the state has a lot of evidence from him that she did not do her job in this situation. But that's where it gets a little muddy with the two jobs she was sent away to do her other job. Baldwin was ordering everyone around. Yeah. He agrees it would be difficult for a young armorer to stand up to Baldwin. It's a very different scenario than what he's used to. Low budget film, brand new, trying to get her foot in the door, things like that. You don't know what Hannah was potentially doing off camera or after cut. He said yes, she could have been reprimanding people. There was even one clip that the state played that she did say, hey, crew, move out of the way to where the gun is pointing. So maybe the jury will hear that and think maybe she was doing more of that. Then on redirect, even when you first became an armorer, the state asks, would you have done all these things Hannah did with the unsafe gun practices, holding guns these ways, allowing others to do so? He said, absolutely not. So standing up to actors and shutting down set and walking off set, that's probably tough for a young armorer to do, but this was way, way, way far gone, way across the line. Was it ongoing, the negligence? Yes. Did you ever see her do anything to stop it or make it safer? No. He has found live rounds on set before, even though that's like the number one rule. When he was inventorying ammunition when he first came on a set, found live rounds, shut down the whole set so they could check it and make sure it was safe. Seems reasonable. Obviously, we know what can happen. They're literally pointing the guns all around, pulling the trigger. He also said multiple times, always treat the firearm as if it's live and hot and the ammunition is live. And then again, multiple times, the judge says, we're coming up here every single time for sidebars now after yesterday's outbursts. And that's the expert. We'll hit this last witness kind of quick. I want to see if you guys have questions. Is criminal negligence stronger than negligence? Yes, usually in every jurisdiction, it's a little bit different, but even the standard of beyond a reasonable doubt also makes the playing field a little higher. Nirvana, everyone was playing Wild West, Alec included. I agree. Rebecca said, I'm waiting for this to turn into a woman thing that we don't know more about guns, mark my words. So the defense has already tried to turn it into that some people are saying it's because she's a woman. I definitely think a lot more has been put on lack of experience and age potentially than her being a female, but it may be something that comes up in the future. They've had female cops testify about it and that she was wrong as well. Debbie O, is Ryan the firefighter running for Clearwater City Council the same Ryan the firefighter from your pickleball game? No, but they are friends, and I am good friends with Ryan Cotton running for City Council. I can't vote for him because I'm technically Pinellas unincorporated, not the city of Clearwater, but really good friend, awesome dude, went to high school as well with him and go to church with him now. Rebecca, thank you for gifting 10 memberships. So the last witness right before lunch was one of the producers who basically worked on financing. He was only called because Hannah said she complained to producers that had his first name. He said he doesn't remember her complaining about needing more armorer time. On Cross, they start talking about tax shelters and all sorts of stuff that I'm not sure was relevant or made much of a point at all. Minanga, Peter, can it also be that Hannah did not realize the magnitude, importance of her responsibility and that no one has prepared her for this, really prepared her for this? So yeah, I mean, partially it can be that she didn't understand, but even what she did understand, blanket just how to be a good armorer for somebody that's not a gun person. I don't know a lot about guns. I have one for home safety locked away in a safe, but I'm not a gun expert at all. Wouldn't know how to take it apart. I wouldn't know a dummy from a blank, from a live a piece of ammo, outside of what I'm learning in this trial. But she should know. I know you don't point firearms at people, right? I know that. And she didn't even know that. So, I mean, the basic safety that she didn't, I know probably don't do drugs around firearms, right? So even the basic knowledge that they're proving that she did not have or did not push on set as far as safety goes. And then when we hear just the basic duties of an armor, always be the last person to check, always be the person to hand it to the actor. Every time you touch it, you check it. It's never out of your sight. You don't let other people mess around with it. You don't walk away from it. You don't leave it unattended or unlocked and things like that. And her failures there, to me, rise to a level to where I think it's totally appropriate if the jury comes back with a guilty verdict. Now, there's a lot more still to be seen, and she's still presumed innocent until the evidence is done, but the state is absolutely building a case against her. I see Emily Baker in the chat. What's up, Emily? Glad you are here. Yeah, I posted on Twitter that you gave me a heads up that this was some bad lawyering coming up, and it did not disappoint, to say the least. And I know Emily's streaming the whole trial. A lot of people are popping over here during lunch. I think she takes a break during lunch, and other places that are streaming it as well. Welcome to all the new members, and thank you to everybody that gifted members today. Monica, yes, I have heard about this. We actually did a podcast on it, me and Pete, if you want to check that out on our Lawyer You Know podcast. I actually think it's on the YouTube channel as well. John, after this expert, can we all agree that it is not the actor's job to check the gun ammo? The actor shouldn't know which rounds are blanks, dummies, or even live rounds. That's the armor's responsibility per the expert. So I do think that this expert is going to be helpful for Alec Baldwin, and his team is going to use him during cross-examination if he's the expert called in his case, because I think he did lower the duty of the actor, but he did say they should check it if they want to check it to make them feel warm and fuzzy, something to that effect, that they should. He didn't completely remove the duty, but I agree, he didn't make it as big of a duty as many other people. And he absolutely said, never point a firearm at somebody, always treat it like it's live. And Alec Baldwin broke all of those rules as well. Cam, why would the prosecutor act unprofessional after she's already got most of what she needs is just distasteful? Cam, I got to tell you, my honest opinion is people just kind of are who they are. It's hard for them to turn it off and on. And my guess is this is kind of her personality, and this is the way it all came out. All right, it's a little over an hour. I like to keep these to an hour so the recaps are shorter and not the full day of trial that you'd have to sit through. I appreciate everybody joining me. Don't forget, hit that like button. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit it. We're going to continue to try to do this during lunch as often as we can. So hop over to, I know people said Recovery Addict they came from, Emily Baker's channel they came from, wherever you're live streaming it. Time to head back over there. Court's probably going to be back soon. I appreciate you guys so much. I appreciate your comments, your questions that you ask me throughout the day. Helps me prep the content, figure out what you want to talk about. And it was pretty wild. Hopefully the lawyering continues to get better. I do think it's been better today than it was yesterday. And the judge definitely has more of a lock on the courtroom. Hopefully that continues. That's all I got. I'm out of here until next time. Peace. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a pase you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.